moment to congratulate the DNC on losing another election to Donald Trump. You replaced me with a candidate who has the same likability as Greasy, hobo taint, and expected to win. And they say I'm the retarded one. The Democrats said that I was too old, that I was too slow, that I was a joke. Well, here's a joke for you. What do Willie Brown and the 2024 presidential election have in common? Kamala Harris blew both of them. I shouldn't have said that. But seriously, I mean, first Hillary loses to Donald and now Kamala. This man has beaten more women than Doug Emhoff. Anyways, congrats on losing to Hitler again. I hope he locked you all up this time. Dank Brandon out. My fellow Americans and autists who voted for Trump.
There's a word in here.
Boy, Dank Brandon here.
That you might not.
I want to take a moment to congratulate the DNC on losing another election to Donald Trump. You replaced me with a candidate who has the same likability as Greasy, hobo taint, and expected to win.
Greasy hobo taint. I had to Google that. People, you know that this video is fake because Joe Biden is far too coherent, far too eloquent, and has far too good of a sense of humor. Can we all like take a breath now that it's I don't know if Kamala has conceded yet, but can we take a breath and appreciate what we just witnessed? I believe it's been called. I don't know if Kamala has to formally concede. I just started the oh God. Dog waits for me to start the show. She can look at me at the front door, whining like I need to get a doggy door installed, but I'm just waiting for her to like scratch her way through the door. Appreciate what of a miracle we just lived through. A series of events that is not born out of the divine intervention that we saw on July 13th, but incorporated that. Trump won the effing election, people. And now everybody say, okay, well, this is the next chapter. This is the next chapter of the next book. Yes, we understand that. But he won the election. He, with the coalition that he amassed after surviving an assassination attempt that he, by all statistical odds, was not supposed to survive, set into action a series of events, a coalition that got a series of players working together to defeat the Democrat demonic machine. And understand what was defeated here. We're going to get into some numbers in a second, and then we're going to get into some big numbers when Richard Baris gets here. My wife woke up this morning and she says, Viva, Dave, I saw your tweet, but it was more than a miracle. It was a miracle and hard work, teamwork, endless effort put in by countless people. And let's just, you go with the biggest players in all of this. You got your Tucker Carlson, but he was already there. He was already a voice of the people. You got Donald Trump. He names J.D. Vance VP, but after the assassination attempt. You have that miracle, which we all witnessed with our own two eyes, and some people still refuse to acknowledge that it was in fact according to Hoyle, miracle. And then you get the unification of RFK Jr. and Donald Trump. Throughout the series of events, Elon Musk realizes, this Democrat machine is out for keeps. They're out to like put people down in every sense of the word. Put them down legally, put them down financially, and put them down physically. And Elon Musk lives through some of that lawfare. Elon Musk experiences some of that Democrat peace, love, joy, and tolerance. And he's like, if Trump doesn't win this election, we don't have a free America anymore. At some point, Elon realizes what the plan is in terms of the open border. The open border, immigration to voting, is the exact same thing as the lockdown ballots to elections was. It is designed to be exploited so that then it can be used and weaponized in future elections. Mail-in voting to elections is what open borders is to immigration to elections. Elon Musk understands that. Donald Trump survives by the breath of God, coalesces with RFK Jr. Vivek Ramaswamy, who had been in there from day one, hitting campuses, opening eyes. Tulsi Gabbard comes in. Other Dems come in. And all of that happening together because of a miracle of a survival. And then you get your Dan Bonginos who have been doing work that cannot be measured. It cannot be, you can't put a price tag on it. Bongino, day in and day out, amassing his Bongino army, mobilizing them, because it doesn't do any good having an army that's not mobilized. Mobilizes them for action, for surveillance, for making sure that there's no chicanery, for getting 10 people out to vote. You get your Scott Pressler up in Pennsylvania. Leg work, his feet must have been bleeding. You get Steve Bannon getting out of jail just in time. They locked up Steve Bannon for the 4 months leading up to the election. The media ran 90% negative coverage of Trump, 90% favorable coverage of cackling commie Kamala. And despite all of that, despite the fact that they physically tried to blow his head off in HD, not once, but twice, and maybe even more than that, despite all of that, he freaking wins in a decisive victory. It's only a question of how much now. If it's 288, I know people don't get ahead of yourself, Viva. It's pretty decisive. It's either over 300 or like high 200s. Despite all of that, it's a miracle, and God gave the people that miracle for them to work with. And people worked with that miracle. And God gave them that miracle, and the people who had the courage to work with that miracle, to put it on the ballot. And yesterday, 70, how many millions of people? 73 million people voted for that miracle. 71 million, sorry. See, FCC licenses. I put out my wish list. Let me actually, before I even get into the sponsor of today's show, I put out my wish list earlier this morning. Well, I must look like a total lunatic. I'm walking down the street, barefoot as always, with my phone, like I'm dictating and talking to myself. I look like a crazy person. And then my neighbor comes out, and we rejoice in the miracle that we have all witnessed and all lived through. I said, overwhelming and decisive victory was the last chapter of this book and the first chapter of the next. Now, election reform. Full investigation. The 2020 election, if anyone had any lingering doubt how fortified up the wazoo it was, I'll show you a number. It's just going to blow your freaking mind. Full investigations into 2020, criminal prosecution, voter ID laws, same-day results, period, end of story. Border reform. Shut the border. Deport illegals with criminal histories, because I think most people at least can agree on that. Full investigation into the dereliction of duty. Mayorkas, impeach, and then maybe jail. Criminal prosecutions of everyone responsible. COVID jab investigations, full investigations. Lock them up. Fauci, I'm looking at you, and you better be looking in the mirror right now. Your judicial political reckoning is very much on the way. January 6th, investigations. Let's get to the pipe bomb there. Let's get to the bottom of that pipe bomb. Let's release all of the video. And then, by the way, did I say full pardons? I did. Pardon all of the Jan 6 defendants. You want to know where there's been an evolution for Viva here? I've had an evolution. At one point, I said, yeah, pardon every non-violent offender. Too bad. Too late now. I say even the violent ones have been punished enough, and then even more so. I got a text from Jake Lang. I get a text from Jake Lang, one of the Jan 6 prisoners. I know some of you don't like him because he engaged in actual violence, and he says it was self-defense from a tyrannical government that was unleashing rubber bullets, pepper spray on innocent women and protesters. Too bad. There were violent people in there. Had you treated them fairly, we wouldn't be having this discussion, but you didn't. You overplayed your hand, all of them. Pardons, blanket pardons. Why did I take that out? I don't remember why I took it. Okay. And then we go into censorship, FCC violations, CBS. You lose your licenses, CBS. You're done. Right to jail. Release the Epstein client list. Prosecute all of them. Ukraine funding audited. I put out a tweet the other day where a friend, someone I'm friends with on the internet says, I thought billionaires would be happy to pay into a social safety net. And I'm like, when you can't account for trillions of dollars, you have too much money in your coffers already. Do an audit and account for the money that you're already stealing out of our back pockets. And if you've lost trillions of dollars, you have too much money in the first place. You don't need more tax dollars for a safety net. Quit squandering, siphoning, laundering the money that you already steal from us. Public health crisis. We get RFK Jr. on that. That's where we're at right now. Transition. Let's see if they try to spy on Donald Trump again. Let's see if they have a peaceful transfer of power, which they never had the first time. You understand the numbers? Do you understand the numbers? Hold on. Hold on. You want to talk about media collusion? This jackass, Luke the Puke Zaleski. Let's see what he's at again. Legal Affairs editor Condé Nast, GQ magazine, head of fact checking, he's been putting out every day for the last 3 freaking years. Never forget how bad it was. Oh my God, January 6th, my insurrection. This idiot puts out this montage and doesn't understand the point that he's actually proving by accident. It's called Operation Mockingbird, you jackass Luke. Oh, it was so much worse than you were. No, it wasn't worse than I remember. It was actually not as bad as you manufactured in your TDS deluded head. It was so much worse. Look at all of the media, almost in tandem, simultaneously running the same stupid ass headlines. Oh my goodness, Trump mob storms Capitol. Washington Post, Star Tribune, insurrection. Arizona Republic, pro-Trump mob invades Capitol. New York News Tribune, under attack, democracy attack. Trump incited mob storms Capitol. Intolerable attack on democracy. Assault on democracy. Oh my, insurrection, under siege. It was such an insurrection under siege that by 8 o'clock that night, they reconvened to certify the vote. It's amazing. This idiot doesn't understand that he's proving the collusion, the media collaboration to run headline after headline against Donald Trump. And despite all of it, a decisive freaking victory against these demons. It's unbelievable. And now people might want to be understanding what exactly happened in 2020. Hold on. I'm getting it. Where the heck is it? Oh, here we go. This is it. Yeah. I can't take the credit for this. I mean, because the initial graph was put out by, was put out by Zero Hedge, Tyler Durden. Look at this. Democrat popular vote, we're in the 65 million. The numbers I have are a little different. This is probably tinkered with for impact. Republican popular vote. Oh, look at this. 65 million, give or take. 65 million, give or take. 81 million votes for Joe Biden, give or take. And then we're back to 66 million for Kamala Harris. I went there. I wanted to check this out. You know, double trust but verify. Zero Hedge. I don't know. They've made some mistakes, but they're good. I like them. And anybody who has Tyler Durden as their avatar is already in my good books. I just went back and double checked. 2008, the first black president of these United States of America, who happens to be half black and half white, raised by his white mother. But I mean, identity becomes everything, right? When you can bank on it. The first black president mobilizes more hope and change than anybody on earth. He got $69 million. Sorry, I actually got distracted. I was going to make a 69 joke, but then I got distracted. He got 69 million votes in 2008. Yeah, by 2012, people were a little bit not enamored with hope and change himself, Mr. Drone strike killing American citizens, sicking the IRS on your political adversaries, running guns into Mexican cartels and leading to the murder of border agents. I don't know if all that happened in his first 4 years, but you know, after 4 years, people were a little less enthused with Mr. Hope and Change. He got 65 million in 2012. So 69 million when the world is rejoicing. 65 million after that. Hillary, when she lost the popular vote to Trump, got 65 million. Joe Biden, a man who is as bland as toast. He was not yet quite that demented in 2020. He got 81 million votes. 81 million, allegedly. And then look at that, Kamala, we're back to 65 million. Do you notice a trend? 69, 65, 65, 66, 81 million. That is 16 million more than the baseline average. That is 16 million, 32. That is 25% more in 2020 than every prior year for the last 3 cycles and the one immediately following it. That is, it's not, this is not a statistical anomaly that can be explained by COVID. This is a statistical anomaly that is now clearly explained by cheating. Now, they cheated, period, full stop, if only because of the censorship. But this is concrete evidence they just cheated. And when they mailed out ballots to everybody, ballots are currency. When I had Mark Robert on Monday, ballots are gold. You're mailing gold to everybody. You are mailing something with a market value to everybody. And they go and collect them, and they harvest them, and they keep them there. And when they needed them, when they knew the number that they needed in order to bet, although it seems like they went a little overboard, they had millions upon millions of ballots to draw from. And did they do any meaningful signature checks in the only state where there was a contestation on the merits, Georgia? No, they didn't. And anybody who tells you that they did a signature verification in Georgia is either a liar or an idiot. Counting what you already counted is not an audit. It's not a signature verification. They never did the required signature verification in Georgia because that would have revealed the problem. Having a bit of a back and forth, not even a disagreement with Roseanne Barr retweeted me, and I love it. And I would love to have Roseanne Barr on the channel or an interview. But they say like there was so much cheating back in 2020. And I say yes, but the ballot harvesting was the cheat. The Dominion, as far as I'm concerned, was the red herring used to entrap people, used to discredit people, and used as the lawfare to silence bankrupt Giuliani, Sidney Powell, because people did make objective mistakes, but that was the red herring. That was not where the actual fraud was. People ran with it. They got discredited and they got sued into oblivion. And then Fox News coming in with their $787 million settlement, partaking in the money laundering scheme. Because Fox, as far as I'm concerned, was pretty much in on it, at least a willing player in it. So they used the Dominion voting red herring to distract from the actual fraud that occurred in 2020. And it's plain for the eyes to see now. 69, 65, 65, 81, 66. Yeah. If you believe that that's organic, and if you believe that that's only explained because it was easier for people to vote, horse crap. Because it was pretty much as easy this time, except they weren't just mailing ballots willy-nilly by the millions to everyone. Everyone was indefinitely confined. Everybody could vote by ballots. They could go to nursing homes and get grandma, hold the pen in demented old, what's his name, Jimmy Carter's hand. Hey, you voted for the first black woman. Good for you. No, they couldn't do that this time like they did it in 2020. That is a long-winded intro way to say, can you believe the miracle that we lived through? There's the old, I was told it's not from the Bible. God, the Lord helps those who help themselves. God helps those who help themselves. I'm told it's not from the Bible, but I love it. On the one hand, God will not help you if you sit idly by and sit on your hands and hope that God helps you. When you get out there and you bust your ass and you work and you take advantage of what God gave you to work with, then God will help you. And we had a miracle by the grace of God. And everybody should also remember, I'm not reluctant, but I feel like it's not my tragedy to remind people of. Corey Comparator couldn't vote yesterday. And Corey Comparator was killed as a result of what happened on July 13th. Copenhagen, Dutch, grievously wounded. Like we say, this is a miracle. But this is a miracle now that has, in a way, there's no justice that can be done. But this is a miracle now that is, I don't know, there's no alleviating the tragedy and the loss. That is, and there's no vindication of it, but it was not in vain and it was not for nothing. They actually, and I'm saying uniparty, deep state, that did not want to see Trump come to power, does not want Trump releasing the Epstein list. They tried to kill him. And in so doing, they killed Corey Comparator and they shot 2 other people. And so he wasn't there yesterday to vote, but millions of other people voted. And people took advantage of the miracle, the tools that by the grace of God were given to them. You had the coalition of people working tirelessly day in and day out, and they defeated all elements of that evil scheming plan. Hold on, Ephesians 6:11. Ephesians 6:11. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. That's not the version I knew. Put on the armor of the God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. And that is from ESV, which is the English something version. I don't know what that means. I mean, I know what it means. And then you got put in the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. And that is what happened yesterday. And that is what happened over the course of the last years, because this was years in the making and it happened, people. And now the next chapter, what's the word I'm looking for? It starts with reckoning. Is it reckoning? I can forgive and even have no issue with innocent, good well-meaning Kamala supporters, the powers that be and the tools and the people that were pulling the strings are not well-meaning, and they are not good-natured. They took advantage of people's stupidity. They took advantage of people's ignorance. They took advantage of their levers on the power to try to manipulate, extort, coerce, and kill their way into power. And I will never forget. And I am just, holy crab apples. It's a miracle. All right. Now, before we get into it, we're going to get into the show. Baris is coming in after a hit with Jeans Louise, Benny Thompson. I was supposed to go on with him yesterday, but it didn't work out. I want to thank our two sponsors for today's show, everybody. We all have two ages, our true age and our biological age. Our biological age suggests how healthy or unhealthy we are inside what your bio age, what you want your bio age years younger than your true age. And let me tell you how Field of Greens is helping me do that. Field of Greens, it's an organic superfruit and vegetable drink. Unlike any other serious nutrition, Field of Greens was approved by a university study that doctors believe may lower your body's biological age. That generally means better health. Each fruit and vegetable in Field of Greens was selected by doctors to support your vital functions like heart, liver, kidney, metabolism, immune system. Only Field of Greens is backed by the better health promise. At your next physical checkup, your doctor will notice your improved health or your money back. Join me for the Health Challenge, 15% off and free shipping. Visit fieldofgreens.com. Use promo code VIVA. Fieldofgreens.com. Promo code VIVA will get you 15% off and free shipping. And while we're on the subject of health, people, you got to know what's going. By the way, I've noticed now there's prebiotics, probiotics, and now I know that there's a thing called postbiotics. And I actually asked my wife this, and she confirmed it's a thing. You gotta plant them, grow them, and then take care of them. The gut biome. Speaking of digestive issues, this is caused by a potential toxin that's in all of the so-called healthy foods that we eat that scientists have been telling us are good. The food pyramid, et cetera, for the longest time. This potential toxin causes digestive issues, according to Dr. Gundry, a world-renowned cardiologist that is affecting millions of people nationwide. Warning signs include weight gain, fatigue, digestive issues, discomfort, stiff joints, and skin problems. Well, Dr. Gundy explains these side effects are often mistaken for signs of aging, so-called normal signs of aging, and they're not. I can assure you that the damage is probably caused by so-called healthy foods, and it's far from normal. The good news is you can easily help fix the problem from your own home. Very simple. You need to know which ones are good and which ones are bad. And what you do is watch the movie gutcleanseprotocol.com/Viva. gutcleanseprotocol.com/Viva. The link is in the description. It's actually, watch it. It's exquisitely informative. After years of research, Dr. Gundry has decided to release an informational video for the public, free and uninterrupted, showcasing exactly which foods you need to avoid and which ones you should eat. gutcleanseprotocol.com/Viva. I watched it, by the way, and what I'm happy with, Richard, you come right in studio. What I'm happy with is that avocado is among the healthiest foods on earth. If you can get a good one. Yeah. Richard.
Listen, what's up, Dave? It's the wrong camera, but it'll have to work, brother. Yeah. You know,
Robert says the same thing, actually. It's for whatever the reason. Sometimes it doesn't always pick up on the good camera. You look good, you look sharp. I'd say I know that you're tired, dude. What time did you go to bed last night?
I really didn't, because my kids go to school. So I was waiting because we were expecting Wayne County to give that last vote dump. And then I thought we could call Michigan and just get this done and wrap this thing up. But it wasn't coming, making calls, trying to figure out when it was going to come. And it didn't. I mean, a lot of it, about 85% of it is done. And then maybe even 90 by now. But that was 4:30 in the morning. And then by the time, my first gets up at 6 to get out to the bus. And I like to be there with my kids. So and I knew they were going to wake up and ask me, number one, both my kids that are of age to know. My third is 5. But the two that are getting older enough now to pay attention to politics love Donald Trump. They love him. And they really wanted him to win. And also, second, they understand, they watch their dad. I'm not around a lot when the election's around. It's just very busy. So I like to be home with my kids in the morning when I can be. So I tried to make sure I was for the election morning, because they had trepidation, I mean, they wanted him to win, and they wanted their dad to be right, more importantly, because they see me stress over this stuff like crazy. I stay up, Dave, making sure I get the numbers right. It takes a lot.
No, it's wild. Like my kids are, one of them's old enough to understand. The middle one is old enough not to care. The youngest one is old enough to care, but not understand that he should not yet care because he can't even know what he's talking about. But
Right.
they were all tremendously like nervous is. I saw my future also in America potentially on the line, depending on which administration comes in and says you all go to jail now. But Richard, okay. We're going to get into the details and some of the key findings, but you've been doing this for a long time. Like it's not vindication in an egotistical way. This is your livelihood. This is your expertise. This is your field. When you are fighting people who are so wildly wrong, seemingly, and then you get vindicated. I mean, you got to tell me, like you were, look, you're not going to be 100% on, but you were spot on. Yes. And how good does it feel?
This one probably feels the best. And I remember 16 like it was yesterday because I don't know, I was not new, but I was new to most of the public. And I felt like it was a closer election and that I was right, but you're going up against the grain, and I'll never forget that feeling. And last night was something else. It was different. It was well beyond, above and beyond that, because this is what I told people going into the election. In 2016, it looked close, but there was always a chunk of voters that were pretty much fed up with the status quo. They didn't want another Clinton, another Bush, or whatever. And all Trump had to do was meet what we call the presidential bar. Like, they convinced voters that they can do this job. And once he did, those voters broke for him. I don't know what other pollsters were doing. I don't know what they were seeing, but I thought it was pretty clear. In 2020, it was hard to find his support. COVID was messing up their panels. It was messing up response bias. It was a difficult environment, and you had to go search for the guy's support. This year was not like that. And I'm wondering what on earth all of these other people are doing. How many times we had Barnes on and what are the odds? I mean, Barnes knows how I do this over these years. We put it up. Dave, people can see the results live on what are the odds as they're coming in. And this was not an election where it was like, okay, is Donald Trump going to do better with these groups than he has in the past? The question was, how much better is he going to do? And I'm fighting against the narrative from these people. It's just like complete propaganda. And that is not supposed to be a part of this industry. Donald Trump won white suburban women last night. I mean, this is like something that should stun you, given everything you heard running up to the election. Well, he won suburban women.
The reason why it doesn't stun me is because I thoroughly regard all pollsters whom I don't trust as propagandists who are creating a narrative and not reflecting one. I know what they can do to tinker with to get the results that they want, to convince white suburban women that other white suburban women are not supporting Trump. And so I guess the question is, like, I've known this for a little bit of time, even from the practice of law. Other people still trust the pollsters stuff. I don't want to name other people, but how do you assure other people that your methodology is accurately reflecting the sentiment of white suburban women?
At this point, I think that we can all go on and talk about the details of our methodology, and I'd like to, because I'm a nerd and I really think it's important to talk about it. But I think at the end of the day, the pollster's track record is going to speak for itself, right? So if you're wrong consistently year over year, and this is a great way to segue into actual methodology, but like Marist, for instance, and I'm going to name drop here because this has got to stop. I mean, embarrassment is the only way we can move forward here. Marist poll made fun of people like them, and their industry made fun of others like me, Robert Cahaley at Trafalgar, a few of us who have done a better job in presidential cycles in recent years, for using different modes of collection to reach these women and others and give them anonymity to make sure that they understand. Like, if I showed you our questionnaires and how our agents interview people and ourselves, and I still, by the way, conduct them myself because I want to keep my ear to the ground. I personally want to involve myself. So I'm just not looking at the data that other people are collecting. I want to talk to the American public. And that's a big difference. I don't think any other pollster does that. I still do. But if, they were making fun of these different methods that we have been pioneering over the years, and then all of a sudden this year, Dave, they all, Marist and a bunch of them, jump into the fold and decide that they're going to try to use these methods that they had been criticizing as illegitimate, as not the gold standard, not high quality. They're going to do it. And they had no experience. So, for instance, Marist sends out their Sun Belt polls, which they did Arizona, Georgia, and North Carolina, and two people, one a follower of mine, I know, get the poll and take the poll, send it to me, and they're like, hey, is this supposed to happen? They didn't even block survey forwarding. Survey forwarding is when you text somebody a link to take a survey, which is a great way to reach suburban women and they will give you their more honest opinion when you're not on the phone talking to them and they think that there's a right answer they're supposed to give. That's number one. But when you do that, you cannot make it so somebody's getting that survey can then take it and forward it over to you. So let's say I get it. I take it and I say, well, Dave agrees with me. I bet you Dave is going to choose Trump on this. So let's manipulate this poll. I'm going to text it to Dave. So I text it to you. Then you can click on it and you can take the poll. Well, first of all, randomness is gone. Randomization's gone. At that point, you've perverted it. It's been tainted, but also it'll be tainted by the bias of the people in their social circles that they're sending it out to. I told Real Clear Politics, they're not even doing this right. They jumped into this new method and they don't even know how to correctly block survey forwarding. There's multiple ways to do it. One is blocking by cookies, another one by IP, and then you should always assign a unique ID to that URL. They don't know this.
So this is basically like it's like it's a chain letter of sorts that they among ideologically aligned individuals more often than not, from which they then derive their statistics for the purposes of polling.
And that maybe wasn't their intent, but because they actually don't know what they're doing with these new methods that for years they made fun of. All right, this is what's important. For years, people like me were trying to pioneer new data collection modes that take out some of the social desirability bias. Social desirability is really a form of response bias. There's a lot of different kinds of response biases. They're driven by different things, but social bias is a major problem in this country right now when it comes to polls. And this time too, there was something else. And I haven't gotten a chance to talk enough about this, but in 16 and in 20, there was a true social bias with people not wanting to say they were for Trump if they were for Trump. And it was like, I'm not going to get invited to the Tupperware party. I think the pollster might look down on me. This was different. How on earth, if you're trying to imprison the nominee of the Republican Party and the major, one of the two major parties, and you want him to spend the rest of his life in jail, if you're putting his supporters in jail, how on earth could we not expect that voters out there were going to be less than, a little bit more than timid, a little less than forthcoming with the truth and the answer, that you want them to give. You want them to be honest, but they were afraid. We constantly heard people on the phone saying, look, can you call back in 10 minutes? I just want to research you. Hey, do I go on a list? Am I going to be put on a list somewhere? We have to prompt them at this point and say, look, your answers, all your participation is voluntary. You don't have to do it, but it's vital that you do. But also remember that your responses are all confidential and anonymous. We will not tell anybody who you are. Like, that is what we have to tell these people. It's unbelievable. Americans were afraid. They didn't want to say they were for Donald Trump because maybe the FBI is listening. I mean, the stuff we heard is stuff you would never hear as a pollster ever before this election. And we heard it all through this cycle.
I want to read just a couple. I'm just going to see some chats as they come up. Rich, what was Trump's Achilles heel you've intimated about all cycle? That's coming from Life of Brian.
Life of Brian. Tell them I'll do Laura's wagging her finger. We'll do a local stream about that. What he's referring to is during the primary, I said that I will tell people when this is over how to defeat Trump in a Republican primary, because they just didn't get it. They just didn't understand. And because they didn't, they went down the same road that everyone else went down that tried to go up against him in the past, and they were defeated. I don't think the indictment was like it. Of course, it helped him immensely with the Republican electorate, but that was not the end all be all. It's just that I have promised this stream to people, and I will do it, but it's kind of long. It's kind of long. So I don't know if
I'm going to read through all the chats afterwards, but and then the Seminar Locals Committee, which I'm definitely going to get to. Okay, so that's one concrete example of bad polling, is by basically tainting your entire pool. What other? First of all, actually, I got to ask you right away. Iowa, the lady who came out with the poll that said Iowa is going to go to Kamala Harris because women in Iowa are overwhelmed with the issue of abortion, and
Yeah.
she's now been thoroughly discredited.
Yeah, listen, I'm not done with her. And here we go. Okay. So I'm going to go on every show that'll hear it and I'm going to tell them the story. I don't know how much time I got to do this. Stop me if I ramble on. But listen, dating back to first of all, I used to respect Ann Selzer a great deal. Okay. I mean, probably more than anybody else in this industry. It is hard to be a woman in this industry, especially when she started. It is a true boys club, and it's a boys club in both the sense that, women, there aren't many women pollsters. Kellyanne was one of the very few women pollsters, and she'll tell you, she's a Republican pollster, that this is a boys club. It's not a women's game. Right. But secondly, so I respected her for that. And then secondly, it's a true boys club in the sense that if you're not invited to this club, they don't want you. Look what they did to me. Look what they have done to me, Dave, over the years, right? Maligned me and smeared me. So that's what they'll do if they think that you're a threat to them and that you're not part of their clique. And especially if you outperform them, they're going to do that stuff. So I always respected Ann that she was able to break through that. Now, let's get to it. 2020, before the Democratic caucus, Ann Selzer did the poll for the Des Moines Register, as she always does. Joe Biden was in 4th place. Pete Buttigieg was in 2nd place. Bernie Sanders was in 1st place. Doesn't really matter who's in 3rd because they're not relevant to this story. And everybody's waiting. It's a highly anticipated poll. And CNN announces that they're not going to release it. And there was a problem with data collection. I found out, it's a source. I got the results of the poll, and I found out that was the story that was being told publicly was a lie. The story was that Pete Buttigieg's name was cut off of one of the interviews. The woman had her Zoom. So when she was reading the responses to people, Pete Buttigieg's name was cut off. The truth is that's a lie. And I was told it was a lie. Mike Cernovich, by the way, also got the results. He knew the story too. So Mike could back me up on this, I'm sure. But the bottom line is Pete Buttigieg was happy to be the foil because he thought he was going to surge at the last minute and actually beat Bernie. And he didn't want that poll out. The real thing was that Joe Biden was in 4th, and the Biden campaign pressured CNN, who then leaned on the Des Moines Register, who then leaned on Ann Selzer, and Ann Selzer agreed to spike the poll using some BS excuse that even left-wing Patrick Murray at Monmouth University agreed with me is not a legitimate excuse to spike a poll. It was very easy to correct, even if that story was true. It was very easy to correct that and move forward, Dave, and they didn't. They spiked it for political reasons. And then we get to the 6 months later, we get to the election. Barnes and I are live on What Are the Odds? Polling Iowa. I'm showing people with a tiny lightweight plus the raw data, that this is not really competitive. It's Trump +8. She comes out with a tie, showing that this is a tied race and it's a headline and what a horse race. It was a lie. The race was never tied. She was doing it for headlines. And then at the very end, she herded to a Trump +7 so she could save her credibility. That was 2020. Now, fast forward again to this cycle. And I mean, she's all over the place with headline polling. As I'm polling Iowa, it's very consistent. There's no real change. She is doing it for headlines. And then we get to where they're getting ready to push Biden out. And again, sources tell me she's holding on to a poll that shows Trump is up 19 points in Iowa against Joe Biden, or ballpark, just under 20 points. They ignore me. I accuse her of holding the poll. They ignore it. They pretend like they don't have to answer it.
This is like high school gossip stuff that I follow them.
But it's really bad because she was holding the poll because they were it's like she knew that Democrats were getting ready to push Biden out. Mm-hmm. Okay, think about it. Understand what I'm saying here. And I've got to be real clear. She must have known that they were going to try to push him out because she held the poll, re-polled a month later, and then had Harris doing better than Biden did in the prior poll, and only released the initial poll I accused them of holding on to when they could use it to advance the narrative that Harris was performing stronger than Joe Biden against Donald Trump.
Do they alter the date on it, or is it known that it's an old poll, but they just release it later?
They pretended like there was no poll, and then when they reported the new poll, they said, and a poll we did a month ago, which we really didn't publish and make public, showed that Biden was doing much worse against Kamala Harris. I mean, it was so dirty how they used, and you don't share a month-old poll like that, even if you did, hold it. You don't do that because it's stale data. It doesn't mean because she polled a month before, it doesn't mean Biden would have came back at the same numbers the next month. So the fact that she did that is like taking a snapshot in time and applying it to what she wanted it to say. Mm-hmm. And then we have what we have here. Look, the people that I speak to tell me that January 6th broke her brain. And I'm not saying she did this on purpose with this Iowa poll last Saturday. I'm saying that as a pollster, if you lose your objectivity, you can find whatever you want in the data and you can convince yourself that I'm right. I don't know in this case how she could have done this because, and I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it was just a poor, very poor response bias. But in truth, she goes on Mark Halperin to explain the results, and the explanation didn't make sense. The math didn't work. She said it was all of these new women who cared about abortion. Dave, abortion wasn't even the number one issue in the damn poll. Protecting democracy was. Inflation was at like 7%.
In her own poll.
She's
Or
lying.
in okay.
Yes.
So then what do you like? I understand how one can falsify them. Again, okay, fine. Inflation is the number one concern. And then let's just say abortion is number two. Oh, well, if inflation is not a women's issue, so we'll strike it from the poll and now we'll go ask it again. Women's issues, abortion. I can understand that. So what did she do? Did she ignore the results and exaggerate the secondary results? Or did she exclude the primary results?
No, I think that she got a high participation from like a Starbucks line in Manhattan instead of the voters of Iowa. Like she probably spoke to too many people in Polk or to the university areas. I don't know unless she showed me the data set. I wouldn't be able to say for sure. But it's obvious that the electorate in Iowa is not Democratic leaning. She had it Democratic leaning electorate. I mean, I think she wanted something to be true. I think she wanted to help advance a narrative. And I think she was willing to do that, hoping it was true. Because I polled all the way until the Sunday before the election. We wrapped up our final interviews on that Sunday. About 10 days before, Republicans just stopped participating in polls at very high rates.
Explain that. That's actually fascinating.
Yeah, I think what happened, I don't know this for sure. We'll have to research this more and find out what happened. But if there is a way, but my running hypothesis is that so many more Republicans voted early this year that when they did vote, they just checked out. And like their interest went down in talking to pollsters. Their interest went down in, even participating in the entire process. They said, I'm done. It's in God's hands now. And I don't want anything else to do with it. Republicans behaviorally are very different than Democrats. It's just true. And then I think the second part of this is if we were to call back some of those people that Ann talked to, I am willing to bet anything that they will laugh in your face and say, I tricked that loser woman. I guarantee it. They probably lied. A lot of them are probably lying to make Ann look stupid. We come up with this all the time. And there's only, it's tough for pollsters to deal with. But I think the combination of the two probably led to a data set that, given her predisposition, which is a never Trump predisposition, she was able to use to convince herself that poll was actually anywhere near the realm of credible or legitimate.
Okay, that's fantastic. I read that and heard it and then saw the results. And apparently, by the way, Michigan was just called for Trump.
Let me see.
Michigan has just been called for Trump, according to Woke Center Left on Rumble.
And that's an indecision desk, but I'm telling you, Michigan's going to Trump anyway. I haven't. Decision desk hasn't called it yet, but it is going to go to Trump. We're just waiting.
It's official. It's like it is official now, right? Like
Wayne is in. Yeah, it's done.
Okay.
It's done. Wayne County.
We went into this in detail. I remember where I was when we did the interview.
34% of the vote in Wayne, Dave, which means he did extremely well with black men in Detroit. Unbelievable. We had him at 35%, 36%, hovering around there in Wayne, and that's exactly what he got.
Wayne County is a predominantly black district, neighborhood. I don't know how
it's the home to Detroit. Yeah, it's the home to Detroit. It's heavily non-white. And it is where most of the non-white vote is in the state. And then around the surrounding area in the suburbs, so you have like Macomb County to the northeast of Wayne, which is the home of the old Reagan Democrat, we used to call them. To the west of that county, which I think is one of the big stories of the night, is Oakland County, which is much more affluent, rich, white, and educated. And Trump shifted Oakland County a net 6 points in his direction, it looks like. So
it basically shifting every demographic in his direction.
Demographic. This was such a mandate win. It's so hard for me to I cannot overstate how much of a mandate this win is. It wasn't just, oh, he did it on the backs of white working class and there was an overwhelming white working class turnout. There was a big white working class turnout, and he won them by a larger margin than he won them in the last 2 times. But that's not all. He won suburban white women. He won more affluent, educated white voters back than, that 8 points shift since 2020. He won an enormous amount of Hispanic voters. He beat George W. Bush, and George W. Bush was like the standard for Republicans appealing to Hispanic voters. Donald Trump surpassed George W. Bush's share of the Hispanic vote.
I saw a tweet. It was one of the ones I was going to bring up. I don't want to put anyone on blast for amazingly rude and racist tweets, but someone says, it's time we have to have a discussion about our Latino voters in America. Like all of a sudden now Latinos are no longer going to be the friends of the, I don't know if the person was liberal, but I presume they were. What was it? Do you know what the stats are now? Because Miami went red and Miami's heavy Latinos. Apparently he's taken like 40% of the vote.
It's 45, 46.
It's virtually half of the Latino vote now.
It is. And when we do the voter validated surveys, if that holds, because these are exit polls. AP Votecast is better, in my opinion, than the exit polls. They're basically showing 50-50 split, just a tiny little advantage for Harris. When we do these voter validated surveys, I would not be surprised if we find out that Trump actually did a little bit better, because as we go around like the Rio Grande in Texas, we look at, and in Florida is, of course, a huge story, but in Texas, you got a county like Starr County, Zapata County. Starr County, Hillary Clinton basically won 2-1 against Donald Trump in 2016. By the time he faced Joe Biden, he had already swung in a good deal, but he still lost it by a hair of his chinny chin chin. This time he beat Harris 58-42. These are, and Zapata's another one. He crushed her 61-39. He won Zapata in 20, but he won it with a bare majority of 51.5%. So taking that in Texas, you have that, which is mostly Mexican, right? And then in Florida, when you're looking at Miami, you're talking about Venezuelans, Puerto Ricans, obviously Cubans, right? And I only had him winning Miami-Dade by 6, which was another projection that everybody was giving me, like I said, the professional smears that come out of this is just unbelievable.
So hold on, you had him winning Miami-Dade by 6, and he won by I don't know what was the result of Miami.
Yeah, I can tell you, he won 55.4 to 43.9. So he outperformed my poll by about 5 points almost.
Miami-Dade. Okay, that's
unbelievable. And by the way, then to the north, right, in the northeastern part of the state where Jacksonville is a county called Duval County. And that's, again, it's the Jacksonville area. In 2016, he won it by a few points against Hillary Clinton, and it swung 5 points to Joe Biden, and it was all about the narrative about the educated white voter in the suburb. This was an interesting county because Duval and Georgia have a very strong relationship with each other. Duval moves with Georgia because it's like similar demographics. And that was immediate to me early in the night last night that Trump has recovered a lot of the vote that he had lost in 20 with educated voters, which again, we can have this debate later about like, where are these votes, Dave?
Well, because I'm looking. The question did he actually? Did 20 million people not vote this time around, or because Trump didn't go up from the last time, so it's not like there was a net transfer of the 20 million. It was 81 down to 65,
right?
And and we don't have to get into that because I think we both probably agree that there might have been some serious ballot padding or ballot harvesting. The question I had. So what do you have any idea of Black Americans? What percent got this time around?
Yeah, so he won somewhere around 25% of Black men, and it depends if you're looking at the the exit polls that are done by Edison Research versus the AP Votecast. I think the AP Votecast is a little bit more bullish, but I actually think the AP Votecast is probably closer to accurate.
25%, which is doubling from the last election.
Yes, I mean,
I gotta go. I know that I put out a tweet saying that he was.
We talked about this.
Yeah, I have to go find that tweet because I'm gonna go rub it in a lot of people's faces right now.
Yeah, I remember you saying, isn't it possible if he wins this percentage of black men that he could really like get to like 16% overall of black voters or 20% overall? We
So
talked about this.
25, he got 25% of black voters overall. I
Black
presume
men,
that's
black
black
men.
men. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
And black women?
He got black women. I believe he got 12 or 13 in the vote cast. So overall, he got about 15%. And one is 15. The other one is 16. So let's call it 15.
No, let's call it 16. I'm going to go back to my tweet and see what I said.
Well, I mean,
holy crap.
1 point is unbelievably close, you know, so it's a big deal. It is. And
let me ask you another one that has always been predominantly Democrat, the Jewish vote. Do you have any stats on how the Jewish vote went this time around?
Look, just had taken vote cast down, but
I love this. You're an absolute like nerd. I mean, it's in the best possible way. This is like most people say, oh, okay, I'll go by states and republic, and you go by like, you know, cities. You go by freaking counties, and you're tracking this stuff. It's not subjective. This is concrete comparisons from one election cycle to the next that nobody knows about or that other people don't sufficiently look into, which reflects on their poor predictions.
Yeah, that's. I mean, you really just said it better. You know, I don't have to add to that. You just said it fantastic. It's really weird, actually. The exit polls are only showing him, and this is Edison. We'll have to see how the voter validateds come out because it doesn't jive with some of the actual vote data. Shows him at only 21% of the Jewish vote. That's problematic because we can look in areas in Pennsylvania that's where Jewish vote is particularly still concentrated in certain wards and townships, and we can see that he obviously did better. We can look at places like Lakewood, New Jersey, in Ocean County, New Jersey. That was an overwhelming support among Hasidic communities. And by the way, New York could not possibly be this close in certain areas in the 5 boroughs, which we know are heavily Hasidic and heavily Jewish.
Well, the Hasidic we know vote go Trump, and they're proud about it. It's more of the secular. I don't know if they would. I say they'd identify as.
Well, there was one left wing. It's in Lakewood particularly. There's one left wing rabbi that has been like the remaining left wing rabbi in that area, and he actually, I always forget what it's called when they put out their endorsement. It's like an endorsement, but it's not. It's more like an instruction to go vote, like as a community. I always forget what it's called, and I would probably mispronounce it anyway. But it was a big shock on Saturday when my friend, who is Jewish, you know, sent it to me from Jersey and said, "Oh my God, it's for Trump." You know, and I'm like, no, it's not. So and he's like, yeah, it is.
This is the question. Had you done any polls as to why the shift is? Is the shift unique to Trump as an individual? Was the shift as a result of the coalition? It was because the shift can't just be Republican. Like nobody's just shifting to Republican for the sake of, you know, the Democrats have been bad, Trump. But not. It's Trump as an individual.
It's Trump, and it's Trumpism. And what is it? When we talked to both Muslim, because we did do oversampling of Arab voters in Michigan, and we also, you know, we've talked to thousands of Jewish voters this election year, thousands of them. We did an oversampling poll in one, and then of course, you know, they're about 2.5% of every national poll we do. So, it is the sue for peace message. It is like, I know even the Arab voters that went for Trump. By the way, look at Dearborn Heights. Oh my God.
I don't remember the guy's name, but it's like
I told, like, there's no way the mayor who is Lebanese, the first Arab mayor in the city, the Lebanese population is 33% basically of the entire city's population. Like, I don't, to me, he comes out and endorses Trump. There's just no way those precincts in Dearborn are not going to vote for Donald Trump. You can't pick that up in a poll.
Who won? Kamala Harris won Minnesota. I could just double check.
Yeah, she did, but didn't do well in some of the Somali. Didn't do as well in some of the Somali areas. She won Minnesota because she did well with like highly educated left wing Scandinavian voters that's, you know, have settled and are like the ancestry of those Scandinavian descendants. You know, they're Finnish and Swedish in Minnesota more than they're Norwegian, like they are in Wisconsin. I know it's crazy, but
no, that you know these details. Like, yeah, it's amazing. I don't even know these demographics of Montreal this well. Like, all right, NDG and holy cow.
And honestly, I think like, you're going to see like Catholics and French Catholics. Speaking of, we're in Canada. Like, look how close Maine was, and obviously Maine too is not close. And that's where this came down. This came down to. But let me just say, even among the Arab voters that we were speaking with, who told us they were going for Trump, and I think it was like 19% for in 2020 against Joe Biden, and it was routinely a third. And sometimes we would get this noise where he would be in the 40s, and I'm like, is this real? And when we would talk to them, they would say this came down to, I know he supports Israel more than Palestine. I know he does, but I also know he supports peace over war.
Mhm.
Period. And they heard that message. Dave, they heard it this time.
No, it's the bottom line is you can't argue with results or the
Can't argue.
absence of war. And despite the amount of gaslighting, it's like, I remember what it was for the 4 years under Hitler, and I remember what it is like now. And there's violence, and if you love Palestinians, even if you hate Israel, you still want peace there. And if moving, the what is it, the embassy, not the embassy. Is the embassy to Jerusalem?
Yeah, he moved from Tel Aviv.
If it creates stability, even stability through strength, that's good for everybody.
That's right. Yeah.
What
that's exactly right.
What is the? I mean, I guess these are all massive takeaways, but what was the biggest, most shocking? I can't. I mean, the Latino vote is shocking. The black male vote is quite shocking. Was there any one specific? What's the word when it's swing? Was there one specific swing or a state that just blew your mind?
I'm telling people right now that what they should immediately be looking at. By the way, yes, Decision Desk has just called right in front of me. I'm looking right at it, and Decision Desk has in fact called the state of Michigan. Donald Trump, obviously, I mean, we knew he was going to win it. He is the official winner. He's at 301 right now, but when Arizona is called, which will be very soon, when Arizona is called, they count for days. That will put Donald Trump at 312 electoral votes, which was exactly my projection for this election. So,
dude, I put 311, but it's only because I didn't realize Maine.
I told you, I tweeted you. I said, Dave, you forgot Maine. I put it in the tweet.
It's so funny. I didn't even see it on my phone because I'm in Target, like, and besides, my fat fingers can't get Maine to switch. But what's the deal with that? Why are there two districts in Maine and two districts is it New Mexico?
Nebraska. They just do this. They do this. Republicans tried to change Nebraska this time, but I don't know what to call them. Like rhino, cowardly, traditional Republicans wouldn't do it. And, so Donald Trump actually would be at 313 electoral votes. I will say this because of the question, is something that surprised me is this, how big the electoral mandate is, because when you put together a coalition in politics, it doesn't occur in a vacuum. So if you appeal to one group, you're almost certainly at risk of shaving off another because they have conflicting interests, right? So what does a suburban woman have in common with Waka Flocka Flame and urban black men and, a Cuban 26-year-old woman we spoke to, not Puerto Rican 26-year-old woman in South Florida that we spoke to, on the way out of voting. What do they all have in common? And it's like, because it's like you're going to speak to the issues of the black community. You look beautiful. You're going to speak to issues of the black community. Sorry, my wife just walked in.
Thought you're talking to me. Stop it.
Stop it. But like you normally are. She said, "You look beautiful, Viva." You're normally at risk of like turning off, right? So if you're going to do better in Oakland County in Michigan, you may turn off voters in Macomb County because they're working class. Oakland is not, right? So how the hell did he keep this all together? It is the biggest mandate we have seen. And I would argue it's probably the biggest since Reagan because Obama wasn't real. It wasn't real. A lot of Republicans in 2008 knew that Obama was going to win. And they kind of like were guilted. You have to remember the Silk Stocking Coalition Republicans had back then. They were like guilted into voting for the first black president. That's a lot of where those big numbers from crossover Obama won came from. And then, of course, the Bush coalition was so bad and in shambles. It was a good environment for him to run in. But you could see less than a year, 2 years later, that coalition collapsed. It wasn't a real coalition. It was a moment in history. Let's elect the first black president. The Bushes, the Clintons, their times are over. Let's get this new young black man in here, see what he can do. He's promising hope and change, but it wasn't something they believed in, and it was BS. And it collapsed within, like I said, like he got crushed in the midterms at a historic level. And that's because Democrats wound up winning seats in the House and Senate. They had no business winning. They were way overextended because it wasn't a real coalition. This is different. I cannot believe the diverse nature, the age, race, geography, religion. Look at how well he did with people who are secular voters. Like, unbelievable. Like, this is not your George Bush Republican Party. Donald Trump dismantled the Roosevelt coalition that's been holding on and trying to define our politics for years. He ripped it apart, shredded it up, reassembled it into MAGA, and it's the strongest thing I've ever seen. And this is the future of the Republican Party. They could go for New Jersey. I'm not kidding. They could go for Connecticut. They could shred the Mid-Atlantic blue wall. The Rust Belt's not even the blue wall anymore. We can't even call it the blue wall anymore because now this is Trump's party. It's official. It's a Mid-Atlantic. Oh, go ahead. Yeah. That's all right. I got kids, but I'll just finish. Yeah, it's cool. I got kids, but I'm telling you that.
But the question is this. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to, I'll end it with that. The new blue wall is the Mid-Atlantic blue wall. And it's getting ready to go.
How much time do you have left?
Oh, I got time, brother.
Okay.
Right? I got time, right?
Yeah, no,
for Viva,
okay,
we got time.
Well, okay. I've got to get the local stuff. I want to get the YouTube chat, the YouTube Rumble rants before we leave and come on over to Rumble.
Mind if I take a vape?
Vape?
Yeah. Mind if I vape?
You shouldn't do that. That stuff is terrible. Go ahead.
I promise you after this election, I will go get
I'll gross you out afterwards. I won't. But then again, I say, how could you vape? Now, where's my martini? It's still too early for a martini, but we all have our vices.
No, vaping's no good. It's not.
No, it's terrible. It's terrible. You should not have anything foreign in your lungs, but for
nothing. Period.
Necessity.
I totally agree. I don't even try to lie about it. Again,
we got Quasian, who says, just want to give a huge thank you to Mr. Baris for his coverage last night. He is one of the best pollsters in the business, and he helped me keep calm and sane all through the election process. I think that's the most flattering possible compliment you can get, is keep people sane. Because I was out of my wits yesterday, just panicking. 2020 was a CIA coup. All we have to do is prove it. The fight to push Marxism out of society has only just begun. It will take years of pressure. That is from Senile Sticks. Viva, I always love your show. I made a comment last night about a Georgia guy who was rambling. I hope you didn't think it was about you. That's from Not a Bot. Don't worry. Even if you were about me, I can recognize it as being true.
Yeah.
Thankful the election is over. Now we can be unburdened by what has been, never should have been, and never will be close to the chapter straight out of the Communist Manifesto. That's from J Boz. And then Carol, any indication of hacking and manipulation, Rich? Harris and the FBI are alleging Russian hackers. Oh, it's pathetic. Harris hasn't given a concession speech yet, has he? Has she?
She has not. And listen, this is, I think, something else that we really should point to. We should talk about real quick, which is just real quick in response to this question, is that for a party that spoke for years about election denialism, it was very clear last night that she lost this election. It's not close. He crushed her. Everybody knows it. They know it. Trump campaign knows it.
They knew it going into it, right? Like they knew it with their internals.
Yes. Mark Halpern, I just want to give him a shout out. Mark Halpern did something, and I've been in this business a while. He just probably burned every social circle he's got. He probably burned every bridge he's got into that world. Mm-hmm. He's obviously going to be all right and accepted into the world of fair-minded people, but he doesn't come from that world. He comes from the media nutcase world. And he took a huge risk to tell you all the truth this time in that podcast two-way. And I think he did the country, and I think he did legitimate swing voters a service. The way that he took a risk, man. I'm telling you, no more Showtime for him. Okay, no more circus for him. No more MSNBC for him. No more CNN for him. They will blacklist him for what he did, and he did it. I got to tell you, it's just mad respect because I know what he's doing.
For those who don't know what he did, he mentioned the internals were not good.
He told the reality, him and his guests, day in and day out. And by the way, same thing goes for Dan.
Is he
You know,
the
he's a
one that
Democrat.
is he the one that Bongino is complimenting on a regular basis on his show, saying he doesn't understand why he's still on CNN?
I don't know. I don't watch Bongino, honestly.
I'm bad with names, but he is, and he plays these clips, and I see them too. This guy on CNN, I'm like, oh, he must be like the resident Republican if they ever had one.
That's probably what's his name, Scott. That's probably Scott.
Okay.
Scott is like, a Trump surrogate, a Republican surrogate, you know, and he's on the CNN panel. But yeah, no, he does his own thing. It's called Two Way, and he's probably, I think he's even did a show this morning. But he has been telling people that this race, in truth, was not really 50-50. It really was not, and it wasn't. Dave, it wasn't. It was not a 50. The most likely outcome, I've been telling my listeners and my viewers for weeks and months, was like Trump 312. Even if Biden ran, it was Trump 312. And maybe Biden would have lost something else. But also, I think he would have done better in Michigan. I think he would have like ran in Scranton area in Pennsylvania. She lost counties now that Biden was able to arrest the trend against Democrats when he ran. Was Monroe. Donald Trump took Monroe. Northampton, of course. That's where Joe Biden, Scranton Joe, right? That's where he's supposedly from. She got crushed in Bidentown, what the media, what in my business we refer to as Bidentown in Pennsylvania. And she got absolutely annihilated. Joe Biden would have been a stronger candidate in Michigan and in Pennsylvania. But that was always the true state of this race. And Mark went out on a limb to say that we're going to be, after the media polls inflate her support, we will be back before the election, basically where Joe Biden was, and she might do worse. And this may not be that close, and we could know by midnight. He told exactly the truth. And that was always the state of this race. That was always the state of this race, right? Maris be damned.
Baris, what I'm going to do now, it's not going to change anything on our end. We're going to go and vote with our feet and dollars. Come on over to Rumble. We're going to have the rest of this over here because the assets and the tools that we had this time around, I believe, actually also changed the results, in that you had a free Twitter, you had a free Rumble, you had Bongino. And so we're going to actually thank those platforms. So come on over to Rumble or Locals. The link is up in the top there. And I'm just going to hit update YouTube. Come on over. There's 5,000. We're going to get well over 10,000 on Rumble here. So come on over now, even if you think you don't like it. Rumble, Viva Frei, or vivabarneslaw.locals.com. But Baris, while the people on YouTube, they all know where to find you, but where do they find you?
The best place is on Locals, and I totally agree with you. The access to independent media this time, without censors and without intimidation, it was a played a major role. Elon Musk buying X, but I love Locals. You know it. You have your Locals page. I've loved this journey that we've had together, with this company. Locals is a community, folks, different than following me on like X. It's a community. So check me out on Locals. peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com.
Okay. We're going